Hey guys, it's almost 2020, and since the previous top 10 unfunded classes gained so much attention, it's time to update the list. Grab some popcorn because this is going to be a long video. Before we start, I would like to say a big thank you to everyone who has watched my content. It's great to be able to communicate with fellow Maplers, and if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave it in the comments section. Here is how I categorize the top 10 list. I wanted to see how fun these classes are to play with relatively low funding. How well can these classes do everything? How good are they at the basics such as mobbing, bossing, and mobility? Are the classes easy to play? Does it require a lot of knowledge to play? Is it hard to learn the mechanics? What are the pros? What are the cons? I also considered gameplay for after you reach the 5th job, as getting to level 200 isn't that difficult anymore, especially with the help of Terra Burning or Mega Burning. Oh yeah, no zeros cause reboot. Anyway, without further ado, let's start off with number 10. It's the wonderful Cygnus Pirate Thunderbreaker. Thunderbreaker has a plethora of skills at her disposal. She's got a bunch of mobility skills that can help her with repositioning during bossing and killing your everyday mobs. She deals plenty of lines of damage and has the ability to chain other skills together. Her mobbing capabilities are excellent, as her 4th job skill Thunderbolt has a very large hitbox, which makes taking out mobs even easier. With hyper skills, you can make Thunderbolt even stronger by increasing the number of attacks by 1 and the number of mobs by 2. For bossing, Thunderbreaker can chain Thunderbolt and Annihilate together to boost the damage output. Just watch out because you can get stuck in the middle of a chain when you need to dodge a fatal attack. At 5th job, Thunderbreaker gains the ability to throw out sharks every 8 seconds. That's insane. Also, the skill Lightning in Unity is pretty nice. Basically, click it and it kills enemies for you. The only downside to this class is that the mana consumption is very high. Thunderbreakers are pretty mana hungry. Of course, this can be fixed with a Junior Boogie Familiar. This class is a simple and straightforward class with a low skill level, so beginner players can easily pick up this class since the fundamentals aren't too difficult to master. Blinking into number 9 is Luminous. Now, Lumies are one of the kings when it comes to mobbing because reflection splits to nearby enemies. With this being said, Lumies are mediocre when it comes to mobility. Yes, teleport is great, and it even gives them invulnerability, but it's too slow, and you can't teleport midair without equilibrium. Even with equilibrium, you can only teleport twice. Anyways, Lumies have a light and dark side where certain skills deal more lines. For example, if you are in Sunfire mode, using Reflection will deal 8 lines rather than 4. In terms of mobbing and bossing, Lumies can enter equilibrium, bind the mobs or bosses, and then use Ender to quickly deal a large amount of damage. Ender deals 7 lines of damage, 14 if you're in equilibrium, and has a 100% crit chance as well as an additional 40% ignore defense. Overall, Lumies are a relatively easy class to play, as the learning curve isn't that difficult. All you really need to learn is micromanaging your light and dark modes. At 5th job, Lumies gain access to Gate of Light and Aether Conduit. These are amazing skills as you just plop them down on the map and it kills things. Spawning into number 8 is Kanna. Now, Kanna was recently revamped and her kit still remains relatively the same, but now her main attacking skill has been significantly improved. Kannas don't use regular mana or MP, and instead they have an exclusive type of mana. This has its own pros and cons as you need to invest some of your hyper points into mana so that you can use more skills before you need to regenerate. Kanna has a great range of abilities to use for mobbing. Orochi, Nine-Tailed Fury, Yuki Musume Shokukan, Spirit's Domain, and Liberated Spirit Circle all help with mobbing. These skills are just fantastic. Plop them down and they destroy everything. Bigger maps are no problem for Kanna too. My Kanna has the inner ability, 20% chance to skip cooldowns. This means I can really spam my full map attack skills. Kanna's mechanics can be a bit overwhelming as there are so many skills that you need to use. For example, when you enter a map that you want to train at, you need to set down your Kishin to decrease the timer for mob spawns. You need to make sure that your hyper skill Black-Hearted Curse is on so you can counter attacks. You need to make sure that your Haku is on so that you can get your heals alongside with buffs. Afterwards, plop down your Spirit's Domain somewhere that reaches the most mobs and then you can finally go attack other mobs in the map. While a bit tedious, Kannas are one of the most iconic classes as it is the only one with the ability to decrease spawn timers. For veteran players, having a Kanna in the map helping you with Kishin is detrimental when it comes to training at later levels, so that's why there's a bunch of Kanna hackers everywhere. Slashing into the number 7 spot is Dual Blade. Yes, I'm biased, now leave me alone. Dual Bladers are extremely mobile and deal one of the most lines in the game, 14. Might not sound much, but that's the line cap. Phantom Blow allows you to sit there and hold one button and completely wrecks bosses. With the additional 50% ignore defense, you literally shred everything that dares to stand in your way. Let's not also forget that dual bladers are basically the dual wielding thief that we all love in every MMORPG. Anyway, DBs get skills to chain with their mobility, which allows them to move around the map very easily. Let's take for example Spirit Savior. My goodness, it's even nicknamed Cancer Savior because of how bad some classes move around the map, or when the lag hits you really hard. DBs have no issues here, as Blade Ascension not only launches you up, but deals damage to free the rock spirits. DBs can move horizontally, vertically, and diagonally extremely well. Okay, I know what you guys are all saying, why is it so low on the DPS charts? Well, that's because if it were good at DPS, this class would just be completely broken. DBs have an innate lifesteal where it has a 10% chance to gain 20% of your max HP back. It's broken. You deal so many lines already, and each line has a 10% chance. 14 lines, 10% chance for each line. You do the math. I'm bad at math. Anyway, as a DB main, I rarely need to use potions except for boss fights because most bosses now deal % HP damage, and you'll actually die if you don't use potions. But wait, DBs have two skills that give them what we Maplers call iframes. Iframes are invulnerability frames where you are invincible. Final Cut gives you 3 seconds of invulnerability, which is broken. How many times do I have to say broken? Oh yeah. Did I also mention that the cooldown reduction? It originally has a 90-second cooldown, but you can reduce it by 20% with Sudden Raid. That brings it down to 72 seconds. Now Final Cut buffs your final damage by 40%, and it lasts for 60 seconds. Slap on the Mechanic Legion card and you get a 20% buff duration, which brings it up to 72 seconds. Oh wow, DBs get permanent 40% final damage. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that all Phantoms have stolen this skill. The second iframe skill that DBs have is Chains of Hell. It has a 45-second cooldown, and I really only use this if I'm in a pinch. Okay, so mobbing is decent with Blade Fury and Blade Ascension. Jump around using both of these skills and maybe use your 5th job skills to hit the rest of the mobs. Bossing? Just use Phantom Blow, Blade Tempest, and Ashura's Anger. With DBs, the only thing you need to learn is the mobility mechanics because everything else is a press of a button. The class is fairly easy to learn with a bunch of goodies added to their kit. Before I move on, can I just mention that DBs have a 90% stance and just how OP is Dark Sight. Phase tank everything. Phase tank all them projectiles. What about AFK mobs? They can't hit you. That's broken. Telecasting into number 6 is Battle Mage. Battle Mages are basically the one-stop shop for everything you need. Their kit has everything you really need. Battle Mages have a unique toggleable aura that they can swap between depending on the situation. Anyway, their teleport is probably the best teleport in the game. They can teleport midair, and it's great. Trust me, Battle Mages are the only mage class that gets 100% stance, which is nice. No need for a Mahao Link skill. Also, they have a great party buff called Party Shield, which reduces 10% damage when hit with a fixed damage attack. For example, at Chaos Crimson Queen, she deals 80,000 damage to you with her Fire Breath attack. If you get hit with that while you are inside the party shield, you take 72,000 damage. Great if you have more than 72k HP, but you're probably still dead. Anyway, I'll consider Battle Mage's auras as party skills because you can use any of them and it'll spread within the party. Some cons about Battle Mages is that they're pretty short ranged. Their finishing blow skill alone doesn't really reach that far. It requires the 5th job skill Aura Scythe to increase the range, but that doesn't last forever. It lasts for 55 seconds at level 25 with a cooldown of 150 seconds. That's 95 seconds of downtime. This class also doesn't perform that well if you have high ping. MapleStory checks pings for these skills, and if the delay is too high, you're gonna run into some issues with telecasting and attacking bosses. Even for mobbing, it's pretty much the same. More cons. Battle Mages have 0% final damage. None of their skills give any final damage. Essentially, final damage is a multiplier that increases your total damage. This is determined by skills. Damage bonus is a multiplier value that is used to calculate damage. This is determined by combining your skills and equipment. So missing out on final damage basically means your equipment is going to be more important compared to other classes. Overall, Battle Mages are a pretty good class as you can heal yourself, give yourself attack speed, and other goodies. There aren't any difficult mechanics that you need to learn, just remember which aura gives what. A pretty solid class to play. Alright, gliding into the number 5 position is Demon Slayer. Now, Demon Slayers are one of the 2 demon resistance classes that you can play. They slay everything. It's even in their names. They don't use mana like Kanna's, they use something called Demon Fury. Sounds scary. But anyway, Leech Aura lets them lifesteal 3% of the damage that is dealt for all party members, but you can't recover more than 25% of your max HP. Demon Slayers also get Ravenstorm as 3rd job, which is now an iframe skill. It also heals up to 50% of your max HP. Not bad. In terms of mobbing, Demon Slayers get to use Infernal Concussion and Demon Cry to reach mobs on higher platforms. Binding Darkness is a bind for bosses, which is nice. Finally, Demon Impact for when your 5th job skills are on cooldown, because when your 5th job skills are up, you'll be using your Demon Thrash to deal damage. Spam that attack button. Anyway, the majority of your damage comes from Blue Blood, the knockoff Shadow Partner. It lasts for 60 seconds with a 120-second cooldown. But wait, there's more. You can decrease the cooldown by 3 seconds every time 50 Fury is absorbed, and decrease the cooldown by 2 seconds every set interval while Boundless Rage is up. Boundless Rage is a skill that lets you use your other skills without consuming any Demon Fury. It lasts for 50 seconds and has a cooldown of 200 seconds. So you need to be really killing things if you want permy blue blood. Demon Slayer's 5th job skills are pretty unique. Demon Awakening lets you unleash your full potential of your Demon Thrash skill by increasing the damage percentage multiplier, 7% more final damage, 62% critical rate, 50% ignore defense, and an additional 50% boss damage. Okay, I'm gonna totally butcher the skill name, but Jormungand or Jormungand is basically a huge serpent that you plop down somewhere in the map and it kills things for you. Orthus is also the same thing. Summons! Smashing the keyboard into the number 4th place is Aran. Aran? Aran? Whatever. Arans take the number 4 spot due to how versatile the class is. A toggleable lifesteal? Yes, please. A toggleable damage reflect? Yes, please. While this combo heavy class requires you to click a lot of buttons, it's quite tame as you really need to click 2 buttons. Arans have a pretty high damage multiplier for their main damaging skills. Beyond Blade is the main mobbing and bossing skill that you'll be using. You'll need to first use Final Blow and chain it into Beyond Blade. The downside about Arans is that you need to remember to use all the combos. So if you go on a hiatus and come back to this class, you might need to relearn them again. Arans are decent when it comes to mobility. They have a flash jump that also lets them slide. Final Toss lets them fling themselves higher into the air, so use that for vertical mobility. Now what happens when I reach 1,000 combos? Super Saiyan mode. All your skills suddenly become stronger and hits more mobs and the range increases. It's basically go Super Saiyan and smack everything in your path. Anyway, Arans might be a bit intimidating at first because of the combos, but the learning curve is pretty mild because you'll get used to them pretty quickly. On to the next class. Pew Pew Pew! Yes, that's the 3rd spot, Miss Pew Pew Pew! How is she still gender locked? It's 2019. Moving on, Angelic Buster has an insane damage multiplier for her skills. What is this 1160% damage for Celestial Roar? Yeah, it only does 2 lines of damage, but it also has a 90% stun chance. It also hits 8 enemies, so that's killing multiple targets. What about single target damage? Trinity and Soul Seeker are your 2 go skills for single target damage. Make sure your Soul Seeker expert is toggled on so you do a bit more damage. Trinity is a 3-part skill where you need to press it 3 times to get the full skill. This skill procs the Soul Seeker essences, so that's good. On the flip side, Angelic Busters are a bit squishy as they don't use mana for their skills. Wait, what do they use? Ah, right, the power of Pew Pew. No, they go off on a recharge system which stops existing after you reach 4th job, so power of Pew Pew, yeah. Check. Power Transfer is a skill that generates a bubble shield that decreases damage by 50%. Here's the description. Creates a protective shield with the value of 1,000 upon casting. The max value of the shield is equal to your max HP, but it cannot exceed 99,999. It's not bad, but this just means that you gotta keep an eye on your HP bar. Oh yeah, have I mentioned the absurd 45% critical damage buff that she gets? Yeah. So if you want to reach 100% critical rate, you need to find 55% somewhere else. Legion gives you 20%, Soul Shooter Expert gives you 15%, so 20% left. I guess you just need to roll 2 lines of crit damage on your gloves. That's pretty insane. However, not everything is pew pew pew, because you're gonna need +1 attack speed for your inner ability. Angelic Busters are kinda slow without it, so stock up on those Monster Park potions, and maybe get a note or glove with decent speed infusion. This class heavily relies on attack speed, but how is the mobility? It's pretty good. Angelic Buster's flash jump sends them flying, and they also get a vertical hook too. At the end of the day, it's hard to go wrong with this class. The only thing that'll make you go crazy is her constant pew 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 voice. Just mute MAPLESTORY stands all together and you're good to go. Spiriting into number 2 is Shade. Ooh, nobody saw this one coming. How did Shade end up at number 2? Well, let me tell you. Let's start with the mobility. Shades get Foxtrot, which teleports you to the furthest enemy in range. Otherwise, it will just teleport you forward. You can chain this skill with another skill called Backstep. Here's a clip what that looks like. Not bad. You gotta turn the opposite side and then use Backstep into Foxtrot, so it takes some practice. You can also climb some higher platforms a bit easier too. Next, you can pull enemies towards you with Blade Imp, so that's pretty neat. Onto the mobbing skills. You get Bomb Punch and Spirit Claw. Now, you'll probably use Bomb Punch on your way to level 200 because it hits 8 enemies, whereas Spirit Claw only hits 3. But after you hit 5th job and acquire True Spirit Claw, every 6 seconds, it deals damage to 10 enemies. Not bad. Now, have you heard about Spirit Flow? It resets your cooldowns, and your spirits automatically trigger a 4th job attack skill. Nice. but it comes with a price tag of 120-second cooldown. Next 5th job skill is Spirit Gate. It just summons things and attacks and applies debuffs. Yeah. Anyway, Shades are pretty cool because they can recover 1% HP on hit. Overall, Shades are an excellent class to play once you've mastered their mobility. Okay, before we mention who the number 1 spot is, let's go over 3 honorable mentions. Honorable mention number 1, Blaster, the Carpal Tunnel Syndrome class. This is one of those classes where you will need 4 hands, or just use your hands and feet. You can literally spam the heck out of your chain or combo skills. Look at this video. Enough said, right? High risk equal high reward? More like requires 4 hands equal high reward? There's a reason why this class is on the top of the DPS or DPM charts. Blasters have good mobility as it uses the ammo gauge per detonate jump. Same as Shade, you need to turn around to send you blasting off again. Anyway, there are 2 combos for blasters. The shotgun punch, bobbing and weaving combo, and the magnum punch and double blast combo. I prefer the shotgun combo, so the learning curve for this is pretty high. You gotta be dedicated to the combos down by muscle memory, and just imagine the training you'll have to endure when grinding at level 200 plus. No thanks, I'll stick with my dual blade. In general, Blaster requires a high skill level to play, so good job Blaster mains. The second honorable mention is the spin to win Xenon. Xenons are kinda weird because they use 3 stats, but hey, you get to try on Pirate and Thief clothes. For mobbing, you'll probably use Blade Dance on flatter or smaller maps with a couple platforms. For larger maps, you'll probably use Mecha Purge Bombardment. For bossing, using Snipe will be the best. Xenons have a toggleable shadow partner, but you will have to re-toggle it again if the projection disappears after losing 1000% of your max HP. Another con for Xenons is the fact that they use 3 stats, Strength, Dex, and Luck. Your gear requires you to cube for all stat percent lines, which are hard to come by. Also, you'll have to micromanage your energy because your buffs use that. When you hit 5th job, you can overload your energy up to 40. Each energy stack gives you more stats, so that's good. However, in overload mode, you will not be able to regenerate MP, and it consumes MP per second. So make sure you're at full MP before using it. Xenons have decent mobility with 2 flash jumps and a diagonal vertical skill called Diagonal Chase. Xenons are relatively easy to play as long as micromanaging is your thing. Finally, the third honorable mention is Zero. I know I said I won't be covering Zero, but hear me out. I need to tell you guys how good Zero is if it were an eligible candidate on this list. Zeros have pretty amazing mobility. Double tap an arrow key and it blinks you there. That's great. Flash jump, check. The only reason why this class might be difficult to play for beginners is the chaining combos. You will have to learn how to rotate your skills between Alpha and Beta. Alpha and Beta have a separate HP and Time Force gauge, so if you're in a pinch, you can always switch to save yourself. Alpha is more dominant in the mobbing department, whereas Beta is more heavy hitting on the bossing department. Zeros are also unavailable for beginner players right from the get-go. You require another character that is already level 100 before you can create a Zero. Also, you don't gain any experience in the Maple world if you haven't completed the story up to a certain point. I would consider this class more of a medium skill level class because you do need to invest some time into learning how to change skills, rotations, and combos. Alright, it's time for the number 1 spot. Finding and shooting their way into the number 1 spot is Pathfinder. My goodness, is this class broken. It's got the best of every world. Mobbing? Check. Bossing? Check. Mobility? Definitely check. I don't even know what this class lacks. Just check out how overpowered this class is by watching my Pathfinders leveling series. Aside from that shameless plug, Pathfinders are the jack of all trades, master of everything. Pathfinders use flash jump as their main way of travel. They also get a vertical jump by jumping in the air and double tapping the up arrow. Cool. You can also make this mobility even more OP by using Cardinal Torrent. Now you have 5 more blinks in any direction, except for down. Remember that Cardinal Torrent has 5 stacks and regenerates 1 stack every 7 seconds. Next is mobbing. Oh boy. Macro Cardinal Burst and Cardinal Deluge together and go to town. Okay, cool. What about the bossing? Same thing. Hold down that macro and you kill everything. Woo! Just make sure your Raven is always up and you'll be fine. Okay, time for 5th job. You can turn your Raven into a tornado? You can control the tornado too? Basically, when your gauge is filled up, you can turn your Raven into a tornado with the skill Raven Tempest. Press the skill again to change directions. Look at that vertical reach. Next 5th job skill is Obsidian Barrier. There's 3 versions of this skill and they all do pretty much the same thing. Just use the burst version. The burst version decreases damage by 40% and deals damage to 15 enemies. Sweet. Torrent version does the same, but 10 enemies. And why would you ever use the Deluge version? Finally, the last 5th job skill, Nova Blast. This just blows everything away. 4,500% damage multiplier at level 25 and gives you iframes during the cast? What? Overall, Pathfinder is too OP and broken, and I hope Nexon doesn't nerf it. It's a great class. And that concludes my top 10 unfunded classes list. Now I know what you're all saying. Some of these classes require funding. Yes and no. You can still enjoy the core of what the class offers you, and damage will come eventually. At the end of the day, it's just my opinion based on what I have observed while playing these classes. Some of them are fun to play, while some might not. Each class has their own appeals. Not every class will fit your playstyle, so you might as well try each and every one of them to see which one you like the most. Anyway, I've rambled on for too long. If you've made it this far into the video, I would like to thank you all for watching this long video, and I would love for you to show me some support in whatever way you fancy. Catch you Maplers in the next video.